Something in your wildest dreams, straight out of a magazine. We show up and kill the scene. I got what you want, I got what you need. We're moving and we don't look back. So quickly it just might crash. We kill it like a heart attack. We got what you want, we got what you need. Let's go. I'm talking out of control. We got the best show. You're coming with me, cause we bring the party. Let's go. I'm talking out of control. We got the best show. You're coming with me, cause we bring the party.
Welcome to the Backyard Brawl podcast, your one-stop shop for inside information on Mac football. I'm Todd Worley, and with me is Memphis Spence.
Hey guys.
Awesome show on deck for you today. So we, as you all know, if you're listening, if you're watching this, the conference championship race is in full swing. You've got a bunch of teams still very much in the mix. A lot of the great games left to be played. They're on weeknights. They're nationally televised now. This is a fun time of the year.
Is it in full effect? Everybody's 5-4, Todd. I mean, there's no separation between a lot of these teams. You got two 6-3 teams with Ohio and Toledo, but everybody else is pretty much 5-4 and still in it.
Yeah, and you've got 2 1-loss teams in the or 4 1-loss teams in the conference, and then 2 also. Yeah, so it's this
Buffalo
awesome
and Toledo,
time.
I think, are 3-2.
Wide open.
Right, yeah,
wide open right now. So yeah, we've got 5 beat writers from MAC programs. Before we get into that, though, we're going to give out the Backyard Brawler of the Week. Our player of the week is going to Northern Illinois running back Telly Johnson Jr. Massive win for the Huskies. It had been a frustrating since the win over Notre Dame and the win over Bowling Green. It's been a frustrating time for NIU coming off of the loss at Ball State. They go on the road to Kalamazoo. Western Michigan comes into the game undefeated in MAC play, and NIU wins convincingly. And it wasn't not led by the guy you would expect, an Ontario Brown, but instead Telly Johnson Jr. rushes 23 carries, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Awesome game, and a game that really NIU needed to win for confidence purposes to get closer to bowl eligibility, and just to get some of those take some of those frustrations out. And they did that, and he was a key reason why. So congratulations to him. Let's get into this. We've got, like I said, we've got some beat writers on deck ready to share their expertise with us. Up first, we've got Rachel Lenzi, who covers the Buffalo Bulls for the Buffalo News. And speaking of Buffalo, like they, had the tough loss at Ohio where it just kind of came out. The game kind of came off the rails. And but then got the nice bounce back win against Akron. What were the key takeaways from that win over Akron?
Against Akron, we saw a lot more explosive plays coming out of UB. They were able to manage the football better. Akron came back in the second half. I mean, their pass defense shredded Buffalo in the second half. I mean, Joe Moorhead, smart offensive guy, smart passing guy as well. I'm a former quarterback at Fordham. And it took a special teams play by John Keogh. He recovered a muffed punt that put Buffalo deep in Akron's territory and set up the field goal that opened it up to 41-30 and gave Buffalo some breathing room late in the game. So it was kind of one of these, they had the ball rolling. Second half, the pass defense got shredded. And again, it took one big special teams play. And as we know, Pete Lembo, really a special teams specialist, for lack of a better term. That's a play that they, that recovery play was something they practice all the time. So, it was really one of these, you saw one of these match it on Saturday games instead, 41-30 final, high scoring. I always joke, I always say, well, whoever scores last is going to win this game. That's very true at this time of the year.
It is. So Buffalo's had some extra time off, having, about a week and a half off since that game. Where do things stand from your understanding injury-wise? How are they looking health-wise heading into this game?
It's really unusual. And I asked Pete Lemma this earlier in the week. I said, gosh, obviously they have Nick McMillan out for the season, season-ending knee surgery. George Wallow, one of their defensive tackles, lost the season bicep surgery, left bicep. Savion Brown, or nickelback, defensive back, out for the year with a leg injury at the required surgery as well, too. But, knock on wood for UB, they're healthy. I was even asking, I don't know about what you guys have out in Ohio, but we've had this weird illness going around last week. I got it. It's going around. They've been able to stay away from that as well, too. So, their health has really, really been well. Other than bumps and bruises, knock on wood again for them, they haven't had a lot of health issues so far. And that's going to be key in these final 3 games. You're playing at night, it's cold weather. Everybody's going to bundle up. You got to stretch a little more. You got to take your fluids in, and you're playing at night. And nighttime has not traditionally been an easy row for Buffalo in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And so now there's no more margin for error. Buffalo's still in the mix to make it to Detroit, but probably have to win out at this point. Can't have any games like the Ohio game anymore. So now Ball State comes in. I know they had a tough loss, but Ball State's kind of been trending upward at this point of the season. How does Buffalo string it together after the win over Akron? What are the keys to coming out with a win over Ball State?
And, obviously, again, they've got to acclimate to night games. The pass defense has to play strong. They've got to continue to create the big game plays. One of the things about Ball State, their quarterback is very strong. He's very consistent. He's good at making plays. UB has to be prepared to produce as well, too. I think they found themselves a rhythm against Akron, even against Western. When Western came back, their two teams was trading scores at one point. But Ball State's a team that's not going to go away. Ball State, they're young. They don't have the same kind of experience that UB may have, but UB really just has to, for lack of a better term, keep their foot on the pedal against a team like Ball State. I think it was they lost. I was reading a statistic earlier this week. Ball State, of their MAC games, all of them decided by, I think, maximum 6 points, minimum 2 points as well. So you got to prepare for that kind of game. This isn't a team that's going to wilt.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and then with Buffalo still being in the mix to make it to Detroit. You look back on the season so far, you've got the UConn game, you've got the game at Ohio, where just kind of surprisingly Buffalo just didn't have it on either of those days. What is it going to take to have a week after week consistent high level of performance to really at least finish 6-2 in the MAC and let the chips fall where they may in terms of Detroit, but at least finish 6-2 in the MAC?
Again, they've got to prepare to produce against Ball State. We're going to look ahead. They play another team that's just like that next week, Eastern Michigan, former UB quarterback Cole Snyder. Eastern Michigan is a team that's not afraid to take chances. They lost 2 of their last losses have come on Hail Mary plays where they've tried to, either get the 2-point conversion on I can't remember if it was a Hail Mary or something else. Cole Snyder, kid can pass the ball as well. And Eastern Michigan they really forged themselves as this gritty team. Kent State, I feel bad for Kenny Burns. He wants to build something there, but Kent State's going to have nothing to lose at the end of the year. So, it's about how they modify themselves to prepare for each of these teams, as well as saying, okay, what did we do against Akron to start out strong? They came out swinging at Akron. What do they do against Western Michigan? They kept up Western Michigan until Western Michigan crawled back in. Toledo, it was the same thing. They got to look at those blueprints, particularly against Akron and Toledo, 2 very different teams. Toledo also didn't have its running back due to an injury, but they take that blueprint and apply it there, and they cannot underestimate or be scared of these teams they're facing either. And UB is fortunate, especially the guys like Sean Dolak, CJ Agbana, Aljay Henderson, their offensive line, guys like Tyler Denny. These guys have seen it all in the program at this point. They've been in these situations, And the bottom line I keep overlooking, they kind of win a night game as well, too. They went, I have a statistic. I can pull it up right here. It was, UB's 2-13 in night games in the last 3 seasons, including 0-9 in Maction games. And, that's something they have to do that, and it's kind of one of these. I said, how do you prepare a little differently? One of the interesting things that UB did during the preseason in August, they would practice 1 week in the morning, 1 week at night, 1 week at 3:00 in the afternoon, just to get acclimated to these different situations. So you get that night win, that's a feather in the cap for the program.
That's really smart. I like that, just because you have to prepare your body to play all those different times a day in this conference. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff from her. It's going to be interesting to see can Buffalo be consistent down the stretch and play well week in and week out without having a game like that UConn game or like that Ohio game where they just don't show up for all intents and
Yep.
purposes.
Yep.
Really curious to see that. And then up next, we've got Kyle Rowland, who covers the Toledo Rockets for the Toledo Blade. So you touched on, I was going to ask you about, with 2 losses in the conference play, Toledo is still alive in the race to get to Detroit. Have the players and coaches been saying anything about that, or are they just at least outwardly just saying focus on Central Michigan right now?
Yeah, I mean, the players definitely, I mean, they're aware, they know. It starts with them. I mean, they have to win all their games. I mean, if they lose another game, they're obviously done. Jason Candle, total opposite. I mean, it's just the next day is the only thing that he's concentrating on. But I mean, I don't think it's some far-fetched pie in the sky scenario that gets them to Detroit. I mean, they're going to be favored in the final 3 games, so them winning those games is certainly not unlikely. And then just, I mean, a couple of things here and there that are fairly realistic need to happen. I mean, I would say it's around 50% chance of making it, maybe slightly less. But I definitely think they have a chance. And even if they don't make it, I mean, if you finish 9-3, you go to a bowl game, you win your bowl game, you go 10-3. I think that would be a pretty good season when you consider the losses that Toledo had entering the year.
Of course, and for that to be your quote unquote down year, and on the grand scheme of things, that'd be really impressive. So with Central Michigan coming to town this week, what are some of the keys to staying on a roll and getting another win?
I mean, I think it's one of those games where Toledo needs to just worry about themselves. I mean, Central is struggling, major issues at quarterback. I think Marion Lukes is a good tailback, but you just can't turn it over like you did at Eastern, and like Toledo's done. It seems like for the last month, quite frankly. I mean, Gleason's kind of a turnover machine right now. But I mean, if you don't turn the ball over and you don't let them hit some long runs or do something on special teams, I mean, not only do you win, but I think you win pretty handily. I mean, it's a home game. Central doesn't have much to play for. I mean, I'll be interested to see how, inspired they really are, to play a weeknight road game. But I think this is one of those where you just want to pounce on someone early. You don't want to give a decisive underdog any hope at all in the second half, because that's when, you get in trouble and one weird play can change the game.
Of course. Where do the Rockets stand health-wise coming out of the Eastern Michigan game?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing for them having these 10 days. I mean, they were down 2 offensive linemen again against Eastern Michigan. It seems like happens half the games, more than half the games. Will they be back? I don't know. I mean, Alan Jones seems like there's a chance he would be back at left tackle. Other than that, I don't know. I mean, they kind of plugged guys in well again. I thought Grant Zimmerly played decent. But, I mean, Savon Clark, running back transfer from Georgia, he had a pretty decent game against Eastern Michigan. It seems like the run game, it's obviously not robust, but it's creeping along here a little bit better the last few weeks. And if they can just get, a guy to 100 yards or have 2 guys combined for, 150, 160, I think that gets them to a pretty comfortable territory. But you definitely want to stay healthy. And the Ohio game in 2 weeks, I mean, that's going to be a big game. It's at home. You definitely want all hands on deck for that one.
Great stuff from him as always. Like he said, they're very much still in this race.
Oh yeah.
It's finishing at 6-2, which is very realistic for Toledo. I think you have to think they've got a very realistic chance to get to Detroit if that happens. And that and like he made a good point, even if they don't, if they end up 9-3 and don't make it to the conference championship game, that's still, you go into a season replacing your entire offensive line with
Right.
zero experience at that position. If you still go 9-3, it's hard. And
Key
if that,
wins along the way too.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If that's your quote unquote, if that's a program's quote unquote down year, where it's 9-3 and you're replacing all those guys, that's still not bad at all. So I mean,
Exactly.
up next we have Eddie Cariffio, who covers the NIU Huskies for the Daily Chronicle.
The beard in the house.
So since the Notre Dame win, like, and there was a nice win at BG, but there's been a lot of disappointment. I know there were high expectations in that locker room. What was the sense that you got from the players in the aftermath of the Western Michigan win? Like, how are they feeling?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, the new goal now is, since they picked up the third loss, is pretty much just make a bowl game. So that's kind of the focus here. They're one win away from that. We can get into it, but I do not feel good about this week for NIU. But yeah, I know we can get into that here in a second. But yeah, no, the general, it's let's get that win. Let's get as many wins as we can. Let's send these seniors out right.
Of course. And so let's get into that. I know Akron obviously lost last week, but that's a team that's been a gritty team all year long. They've been giving people tough matchups, and they got their first conference win 2 weeks ago. What are the keys to NIU coming out with another win this week?
It's just been so weird with them this year. I mean, beat Notre Dame, win at Bowling Green, win at Western Michigan. And then you look at the losses they have to like Buffalo and Ball State. And I think, the Akron game kind of fits the mold. I mean, on paper, this should be a 3-touchdown win, you would think. But it's just the way they have played this year. They played down to their competition, and they have never been great at home either, especially under Hammock. So you're going to have that element put into this. I just have the really, really bad feeling about it. They can play the way they played against Western Michigan. Do those things, get a turnover, don't turn the ball over on offense. I think they fumbled once. It was Brown that fumbled, but he was also hurt on the play. It was a whole, what do they call that? A hip tackle that's illegal in the NFL, or a hip drop, whatever they call that are illegal in the NFL now. Apparently that was what the guy used. And so eliminate the turnovers, or keep the turnovers down and force them. That's the key to winning. But man, there's a huge mental piece I wish I could explain.
That's got to be, I wonder from a player's perspective, like, it had to have been, since the Notre Dame win, there might have been like it's hard to be confident week after week when you're not playing well consistently week after week. And so then, but now you go on the road, you're playing Western Michigan, who's the only undefeated team in conference play, and you win convincingly. I wonder if that might be the jolt of confidence to where now everyone, okay, guys, we can do this now every single week now. Have you gotten that sense from Coach Hammock or the players this week?
Yeah, but the thing is, you had that sense after the Bowling Green game. It was the same situation, where they had lost the game they probably shouldn't have to Buffalo, where they kind of played down, lost in overtime, then bounced back and win that game. And the schedule was set up with, who they had with, Bowling Green and, or with Ball State and Toledo, which Toledo's not the Toledo they've been in the past. I mean, not that they're bad, but, it's not like Toledo. It's just Toledo. So, yeah, it was set up. It was set up great for them, and once already, so it's set up great for them again. We'll see if it's different this time around. I mean, this is an experienced team. This is a senior team. Hammock has stressed that this team learns from their mistakes. We'll see. I mean, I know we're setting the bar at soundly defeat a 2-7 team or whatever, but I mean that's where it is right now. I mean, if they were going in and playing, a mythical another undefeated MAC team, be all in. Yeah, they're going to win this one, but because it's Akron, there's just an uneasiness.
Great stuff there, and I was, as always, like, we love having him on. But I mean, I alluded to when we talked about Telly Johnson Jr., like, that loss of Ball State had to be so deflating for NIU because they were still in the conference championship race until then. and
Mhm.
then I'm sure they did not expect to lose to Ball State. And then but I love the way those guys responded because you're going on the road, long road trip up to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and playing against Western Michigan, who came into the game undefeated in conference play. And so, and not only to get the win, but to get it convincingly and have the offense be so productive where
Yeah.
they hadn't been in some big games earlier in the season. I think that had to been really kind of like a revitalizing win for those guys, and I'm happy for them.
Yeah, I don't know what NIU, they play so well on defense, especially third downs. They usually get folks off the field, and it's these losses. I can't piece them together. I don't know how how the team feels in the locker room or whatnot, but getting some win if they finish out strong. I mean, they're 2-3. They're still technically in it. And if they finish strong and all the cards fall a certain way, who knows? They may end up in Detroit. It would be crazy.
I mean, there is still potential for so much carnage, and so they'd have to get a
Yeah.
lot of the help. Obviously, have to win out, then get a lot of the help. But
Mhm.
stranger things have happened. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then up next, we've got Michael Burwell from the Toledo Blade, who covers the Bowling Green State Falcons. Are any key players that you're aware of that are questionable injury wise heading into this game against Western
Uh,
Michigan?
I don't believe so. Just usual guys who have missed most of the year. I mean, I don't think any of those guys are going to come back anytime soon. But I think BG's relatively healthy for the most part. I know wide receiver Malcolm Johnson Jr. I know he had a little bit of an injury, but he's played the last couple games. He had a huge fourth down catch on that touchdown drive early in the third quarter. Um, uh, to really spark the offense on that drive. So he's looks to be back and healthy. Terrion Stewart, running back, star running back. He missed a couple games or like early on in the season with an injury. He seems to be rounding into form. He's had I think 340 rushing yards the last 3 games, but I don't. To my knowledge, I don't. I don't. I'm pretty sure they're pretty healthy going into this Western Michigan game.
Good, good. So yes, let's get into it. This is a huge game. Obviously, I know Western lost last week, but both teams are very much in the thick of the conference championship race. What are some of the keys to Bowling Green getting the W against the Broncos?
Yeah, BG's gonna have to. I mean, Western's offense is absolutely outstanding. Running the ball, they're one of the best rushing teams in the country. BG is not one of the best rushing defenses. They rank towards the bottom of the FBS in that regard. So for BG, I think getting turnovers and converting off of those turnovers is going to be really important. And then special teams as well. Western Michigan has allowed 4 kick return touchdowns this season, which is mind-boggling. No one else in the FBS has allowed more than 1.
Hmm.
So maybe that's in BG. Their first play of the season was a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. So if BG can get some big plays in special teams in that regard, especially the kick return game, I think that can definitely provide a boost for them. So BG's offense is really rolling right now. Western's defense is really struggling, and all year they've really struggled. So I think BG's going to be able to move the ball. It's just a matter of if they can get stops against a really, really good Western Michigan offense.
Great stuff from Michael. So BG, that was a game I was really interested in seeing. You're going on the road up to Central Michigan after the massive win against Toledo. Like, how are you going to respond? How do you avoid the trap game, the letdown to where, um, you see it throughout college football every week
Oh
where a
yeah.
team comes up with a big
Week in
one
and week
one week, then the next week they lose a game you don't expect them to lose. So
Yeah.
BG avoided that trap and then got a win's a win, and now they're in, they keep it rolling. They're going to be in Detroit, so it's going to be interesting to see how they play the rest of the season. Last but certainly not least, we've got Cade Hampton, who covers the Ball State Cardinals for the Star Press. So coming into the Buffalo game, Ball State seems to be trending upward late in this stage of the season. What are some keys to getting a big road win at Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, I think they just kind of need to keep doing what they're doing. Like you said, they've been on a very nice upward trajectory as of late. The defense has played really well, and I think this Buffalo offense isn't quite, the best that they've seen in terms of who they've faced so far, especially when you compare it to facing Miami last week. They have one of, the better offenses, very experienced quarterback, and Buffalo's offense just hasn't really been at that level. So I think this is a good opportunity for the defense to continue playing as well as they have. And then for the offense, they, just need to keep doing what they're doing. They have really benefited from Justin Bowick coming back into the receiving core. He had a huge week with 171 yards and a touchdown against Miami. So, and then of course Koziol is always a weapon. And I think the main thing though is they need to just establish the run game. They have a really nice running back duo of Braden Sloan and Vaughn Pemberton, and neither of them really saw the touches that that we're used to them seeing. I think they only combined for like 8 carries against Miami, which just was kind of atypical for them. They really like to run the ball and, have that established because it opens up RPOs, play actions, things like that. So to just see them kind of not really run the ball very much, especially in the rainy conditions, was kind of a surprise. And I think that's something that they should try and go back to against Buffalo.
That makes sense. You mentioned Kyle Kelly earlier, and I know obviously had been an offensive player previously. Then heading into this season, the plan was to use him on defense. Which different positions has he been playing this season?
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird because, like you said, he did come into this season making a change from quarterback to defensive back, but we haven't really seen him play defensive back as far as I know. I don't think we've seen him play defensive back at all, but they have kind of used him as sort of just a gadget guy, like a wildcat. They've lined him up at receive, tried to get it to him on reverses and screens like that, but most of the use is they, put him in at QB and they'll send Simonza out wide, and then they'll do like a wildcat run or an option sort of run with him. And they've had some pretty effective plays with that. They've had it work for some chunk plays a couple of times, but early on in the season, it felt like they were kind of trying to figure out how to use that. And teams, defenses would key in on him when he would come in. And now it feels like they're a little more comfortable with using him. But I think, like I mentioned, they were just trying to force it a little bit in the red zone against Miami, and it just didn't really work out that well. But they really like Kyle. He's a, great athlete, good kid. They want to get him on the field, get the ball in his hands. It just is a matter of scheming up those touches for him and then, not, over relying on it in those kind of red zone situations because, like I said, the defenses have been kind of just keying in on it.
Awesome stuff from Cade. So one thing that's been so impressive is it's one thing to a 12-game season is a long season. And so when things kind of go off the rails early in a season for a team, it's so easy for the guys to write it off or to not stay together, to not keep improving. But then Ball State's been able to keep things together, keep everyone together, keep competing at week in and week out. And so I know they lost to Miami, but they still gave them a run for their money. And it's a team that really is headed in the right direction right now. And I like they're not they're not going to win the MAC this year, newsflash, but they are headed in the right direction as the season's going on. They're trending in the right direction. I like to see that.
Yeah. They're 2-3 in the league as well, and this isn't. I mean, some years is just not your year, but they're putting certain pieces together that may actually end up as building blocks for next season. Hey guys, I want to tell you about the Backyard Brawl Club. This is the paid club. Get into it. You can still talk to, if you're part of this club, you can still talk to us off season and everything else. We know everything's coming down the wire now, but the way to get your questions answered is to join this club here. Join the Backyard Brawl Club and get premium access to both Todd and I for this season.
Thank you guys for joining us. You guys are what makes this show. And also thank you to all the writers that joined us. We had Rachel Lenzi, Kyle Rowland, Eddie Cariffio, Michael Burwell, and Cade Hamption. You MAC fans, you know this. You're so fortunate to have the beat writers all of them are so dialed into your program and so dedicated to bringing you the best information out there. And we love having all of them on our show.
For Todd, I'm Spence. Thanks to everybody, and we will see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.